I'm Riley Chow. I'm here with Amanda Spears, Tony Ruiz, and Zach Laws, and we're going to be talking about the 2016 Emmy race for Best Actor in a Drama. Last year, the winner was Jon Hamm. He won for the series finale of Mad Men. He defeated, among others, Jeff Daniels, who also submitted his own series finale. So replacing them this year, we have Rami Malek, who has submitted the pilot episode of Mr. Robot, and we have Matthew Rhys, who has submitted the episode with the absurdly long title from The Americans that he also directed. The other four nominees are returning from last year. They are Kyle Chandler from Bloodline, Bob Odenkirk from Better Call Saul, Leo Schreiber from Ray Donovan, and Kevin Spacey for House of Cards, and they've all submitted their respective season finales. Now, the voting changed last year where the episode submissions might not matter as much because now it's just a popular vote instead of a vote decided by a small panel that has to watch all the episodes, but they do still submit the episodes, so we are going to talk about them because that's what we do at Gold Derby. Now, personally, I think that this race would be the hardest one for me to call if we were under the old system where it was going by tapes. What do you think, Amanda?
I actually really agree with you because if we were going off tapes, I know everyone's going to call me crazy, I might actually think Leo Schreiber would have a really good chance at winning this with his submission because there is something about the final 10 minutes that was just so surprising, especially he's so stoic throughout. And we don't really see that kind of emotion out of the other ones. So I think he would definitely, this year, really be in the race.
What do you think, Zach?
I don't think you're that crazy, Amanda.
Yes.
Well, I mean, for one thing, Ray Donovan has just continuously grown throughout every season. I mean, first season it was just Jon Voight. Last season it was just Liev Schreiber. Now they're both in, and the episode he submitted is the one that's nominated for directing as well. So, yes. I mean, clearly they like Ray Donovan, so I don't think he's that long of a long shot. I mean, every one of these episode submissions is so strong I have a hard time guessing which one it would be. My best guess of who's going to win, Rami Malek, Kevin Spacey, Bob Odenkirk. I mean, take your pick. It's a very tough one to call.
And what did you think watching the episodes, Tony?
I think Amanda's spot on. I had a really hard time deciding between these, with the exception of one. If I were voting, for me, it would be Kyle Chandler. I remember watching his. I was watching. He has the same submission as Ben Mendelsohn in the supporting category, and I was watching that episode and just stunned at how good. And he's got two absolutely dynamite scenes. One right in the middle where he's has this kind of confrontation with his siblings, and then that incredible tense scene at the end that's just so good. And but Liev Schreiber is right. I've got kind of like a three-way tie for who I would pick between Chandler and Malek and Schreiber. Yeah.
I feel the same way about Chandler. I wonder if he's actually further ahead than we think because he is the only one who has won an Emmy, and he won it in this category. So this one, I just don't know what to do.
And he won it when nobody was expecting him to win it, especially since he was up against the suitcase episode for Jon Hamm.
He has to be somewhat popular to do that when no one's expecting it. On your final year, he was only nominated twice. And there's just something, I just have this gut feeling that Kevin Spacey is not going to win, which is what's keeping me from picking him. His might be the episode I didn't like the most.
I thought this episode was surprisingly good, actually. I had thought that maybe he should have submitted the one where that Robin Wright also submitted because he has that menacing scene where he goes off on Kathy and is waving the knife at her. But this one I found that he actually has a lot of screen time and the stakes are high for House of Cards. And like if I were predicting this category based just on tapes, I think I would go with Leo Schreiber, but I'd be doing it with no confidence, because although he does have, the scene of the category, like he's the only one who cries in his episode, which is kind of a rarity for
In this
category.
category.
Yeah. But what he has going against him is that he plays, a strong, silent type. He's very stoic, whereas you have somebody like Kevin Spacey who's excessively theatrical, or you have Rami Malek who is playing a character with all these disorders. Like, these are people who, even when they're not playing a big scene, they're on all the time. Maybe like Jim Parsons in The Big Bang Theory, where they're always playing their character. They can't be mistaken for the real life actor. I actually don't think that this category has such strong tapes as you guys do. I feel like any of these people would have lost in any other year, going up against all the times that Bryan Cranston won,
Yeah.
when Damian Lewis won, or when Jeff Daniels or James Spader would have those big speeches. So if I were going off of tapes, I'd say maybe Bob Odenkirk, just for being consistently solid in his episode, and then Kevin Spacey and Rami Malek because of their character playing, and then Leo Schreiber because he has the scene. I didn't see anything in Kyle Chandler's tape. I thought he had Dynamite's mission last year, where he's killing his brother, I guess you can say.
The showdown, basically.
Yeah. Whereas this year he has that, he kind of blows up in the middle when he's talking to his siblings, and then I thought, okay, when's he gonna blow up again? But then he's just kind of driving along, and then the episode was over. So I was a little underwhelmed by his.
Yeah, this is interesting, because you would have thought that the returning ones, that the writers would have given them something like huge to do, and I think the only one who really had something big that I wasn't expecting was Schreiber. And I was sure you guys were going to tell me I was crazy, but
Nope.
I don't know. I just don't think Kevin Spacey is going to win. His character of all of them is the most unlikable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's helping him.
I think part of the reason why he submitted this episode is because he's having to do, I don't know how to say it other than he's having to do a lot of things at the same time. He's having to try to deflect attention away from him about this scandal while doing a bunch of other, this political machinations that he does in the show. And so he's able to play a lot of different kinds of, a wide range of emotions, I should say. He's explosive in instances with Doug. He's kind of oily and charming in instances with the guy from the paper whose name escapes me. I sound like an idiot right now. I can't remember. I'm like, yeah.
There's a lot of characters on that show, so it's okay.
Yeah, just the guy with the blah, 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 and but I think that it is as strong a selection as he could pick for this season. Now, as we've been saying over and over again, do the tapes really matter? And so, who would win in a popular vote?
I think it would be Kevin Spacey easily, because he's won SAG twice now, and SAG is also a popular vote. And at the Emmys, he has not won before, but he's also gone up against a bunch of people who are no longer eligible, like Jon Hamm, Bryan Cranston, Jeff Daniels.
I mean, he couldn't win for recount. I don't think he's any less popular than Tom Wilkinson, who won that year. I mean, you could make the John Adams argument, but he was at that time a two-time Oscar winner, and we know they love movie stars, and he could not win in a popular vote. And we've known, at least in those categories, it's always seemed to be that way. Yeah, so I just have this feeling that he's not going to be able to pull this off. I'm going with Malek at the moment, but I'm going to have to think about where I have Chandler, because I am a little hesitant that they might just go back to the one that we know they like. There's no way he was able to win that without it being a little bit about him being himself liked.
Let's talk a little bit about Rami Malek, because I have him in second place right now. I'm kind of going back and forth between Spacey, Malek, and Bob Kirk, and then I guess Kyle Chandler. So Malik is on the brand new show, kind of in that vein of like, I guess the closest comparison would be somebody like Michael Chiklis in The Shield. You know, completely unknown guy, kind of comes out of nowhere and has this really explosive performance in this show that's kind of a cult hit. It's the new kid on the block.
It's the cool show.
Right, yeah. And it's on right now. It's in season 2 right now. So what if his chances?
Well, Gold Derby actually has it ranked first. I think he's helped by the system this year that we have versus last year, because this year they only have to rank, you only vote for one name. You don't have to rank everybody in the category. I think last year maybe he would have been hurt by people, having no familiarity with him. So maybe they just put him down in 7th as they're filling out their ballot. Whereas this year what it takes is passion. And I think his performance is something that inspires passion. It's just that when I put him against Kevin Spacey, who's on a show with 8 acting nominations, and then Rami Malek's on a show with 1, and it's a popular vote, and Kevin Spacey is a popular guy, and this is, an iconic performance that has revitalized his career. So I think that he has a lot of things going for him more than Rami Malek, I would say. What do you think, Tony?
I think the problem with Spacey is that he's often not thought of as the best part of his own show. When people talk about that show, they talk about Robin Wright. They talk about all of the guest stars that get in. Yeah, he's won at SAG, which is a popular vote. But until I see somebody win a main category at the Emmys for House of Cards, I'm not going to believe it until I see it. And he is not. His tape to me was the least effective. And whether the tapes matter or not, maybe some of the tape, maybe the tapes matter for some people, maybe enough to not get him enough number 1 votes to win. It's hard to tell. I think I have Spacey in 2nd right now, but I'm like Amanda. There's just something that says that, is he really the one from that show that they're going to go for?
And just to throw a little bit at that SAG win, we've seen them in those TV categories just go for the most famous person. I mean, William H. Macy won for Shameless on the comedy side. Won. Betty White's pulled this off. Maggie Smith beat Anna Gunn. I still don't know how that one happened for the final season of Breaking Bad when they won everything. So I'd like to see the vote total. I'd like to see the vote total of a couple awards, but it's not 100% you're going to win. We've seen people win SAG awards and lose Emmys. We've seen it a lot. My one thing with Rami Malek is when I rewatched the episode, I started thinking about Michael C. Hall on Dexter because it was so heavily narrated, and I'm wondering if that could be a factor because he's not. I mean, his voice is acting, but we're not seeing the agony, kind of. I mean, he does cry in the episode, but he's narrating his tears.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I also think that, as I was going through the season of Mr. Robot, and especially like midway through the season where he has like a lot to do and like trying to save his girlfriend and getting high on having the drug trip, I was like, oh, those would be really good Emmy submissions. So the pilot was not quite the one I would have thought of to put in.
I think it was smart because if they haven't seen the show, then they really wouldn't understand what's going on, especially this show. This is not like a lawyer setup show where you can just plop down and watch episode 12. So for him, I think this is the reason probably why he did go with the pilot at least. It explains what's going on for people who haven't seen it. For those few who probably are still watching the episodes.
Well, fair enough, yeah.
Yeah, I initially thought that the pilot was the right choice for him because of those reasons, but as I was kind of going through it again, I found that it kind of tapered off in the middle, and like he doesn't get a big scene at the end to play like Leo Schreiber or even like Kevin Spacey. So I wonder how much impact he has, when people actually finish the episode and they go, like, what do I remember about this one?
Yeah, that's why if I were just to sit down and watch these straight through after I watched Schreiber's, I would have ticked his name off myself because
And
it's just the last 10 minutes.
I
Yeah.
think that's something that we saw back in 2010 when Bryan Cranston won his third, kind of surprisingly, where you had all these really strong tapes in the category, but his episode was the one that finished the strongest, where he's pleading for his life, and then he turns the table to so that Jessica can kill Gale.
Yeah.
And
So
oftentimes we've seen, particularly in these lead acting categories, that sometimes it's the one big scene. We've even seen it a couple times in the supporting categories, where if you have one really, really good scene, like an Allison Janney in The Women of Kumar, and a gun, if there was one right on the tip of my tongue and I lost it.
Oh, sorry.
But if you have that one big memorable scene, Peter Dinklage just had that one big scene in the middle of Baylor, his first Emmy win, and a lot of us didn't give him the benefit of the doubt because he was missing for tons of the episode, but he had that one big memorable scene. Jeff Daniels won his Emmy primarily based on that epic first 10 minutes of that episode, not for the rest of it. So it's going to depend on, I think, if the tapes matter at all, what do voters remember? So, this one could go any number of ways. The thing that gives me a little bit of pause about Spacey is that he really, of all the characters in this category, he is, and this could both help or hurt him, he's the one purely antagonistic character. And when was the last time the Emmys went for a performance that was just pure evil? And not, I mean, even when Cranston won for the fourth one, there were still those moments of humanity with his daughter, when he is begging for Hank's life, even when he's nasty for much of the episode. But when was the last time that a purely kind of oily antagonistic performance won?
Yeah, he's willing to blow up the world to be president. I mean, let's be honest. This is very scary, especially in an election year. We probably should talk about that too. Is that going to hurt him because he's playing this like evil person, and we're in the middle of this?
I would think it would help him. I mean, because the election is in the forefront of so many people's minds, and especially because there is someone running for president. Not going to say who may blow up, who seems to want to blow up the world. But I mean, I guess it could help him in the sense that the election would be on everybody's minds. I think it's actually going to help Robin Wright, which we'll talk about later. Do we want to talk? What about Bob Odenkirk? He's a 10-time nominee, and he's won twice, but never for acting.
I think he's a little one note. That was my problem. It just felt very much like he was yelling the entire time. Where I really think this is one of those things where it was such a shame because last year we saw so many different layers to this performance, and then this year it felt like it just plateaued.
Yeah, I think Bob Odenkirk I think he's pretty well liked, but I don't know about his show either. I feel like it's just still kind of coasting on the fumes of Breaking Bad. It's not nominated for writing, for directing, for editing, for cinematography, it is nominated for editing, but not casting. So I'm not sure how much the Academy is really enjoying that show, if they're still watching it. The last person that we haven't talked about is Matthew Ruiz for The Americans. And it's just like the Emmys to nominate him for the fourth season after both Critics' Choice and the Television Critics Association nominated him for the first 3 seasons, and now they've finally dropped him for the 4th season when he doesn't really have as much to do. I found in his episode, he had a great episode a couple seasons ago. Now he's just worn down. He's just kind of emo. It's just a lot of sighing.
Yeah, it's interesting that that particular episode. Of course, he directed that episode, which could play in his favor. They love it.
It didn't help Liev Schreiber last year, so.
No, it didn't. But it did help John Cryer one year.
Don't remind me.
I know, like the Voldemort of the Emmys. Yeah, and this is an episode that you could tick off a lot of boxes for, because this is also Kerry Russell's episode. It's Margot Martindale's episode. Is this one nominated in? I know it's submitted with their tapes. Is this one in directing or writing?
They didn't submit it for writing because it's not written by the showrunners.
Okay. But yeah, his performance, it's a very good performance. He has one really, great confrontation scene with Kerry Russell, but the rest of it is very much a downer. He's depressed over, I can't remember her name right now, he has to send back to Russia. Martha, thank you.
Poor Martha.
Yeah, poor Martha. Yeah. But, I don't think this episode is enough to get him a win. But, again, with the Americans, finally making it in, could that help him? Maybe.
I was going to say, if they if people have been jonesing to vote for the Americans in some top shelf categories, this is their opportunity. So maybe it could just be like, well, I didn't get to vote for him for the last 3 years. I'm going to vote for him now.
Well, if they've been jonesing that much, he should have been nominated. That's.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, this one also felt flat. It felt flat to me. His and Odenkirk's. I don't know. It just didn't feel like he did enough to earn it under the tape system.
I do have him in 6th place, so.
Do you think Spotlight being Best Picture and Schreiber being in that, and now he's nominated for an Emmy, that might help him just a little bit, since, if the tapes don't matter, we have to consider outside factors?
Well, we never give Emmy voters much credit, so, will they even remember that he was in Spotlight when he had the beard and the glasses?
Will they remember that Kevin Spacey was in 9 Lives that just came out and failed spectacularly,
oh my God.
where he plays a reincarnated cat?
I can't believe he did that movie.
Apparently they sold it to him as being like a what was that movie, Ted? It was going to be he was going to be a potty-mouthed kitty, but then they started shooting, and they said, well, no, maybe we should sell this to the kids, and so it was wasn't the movie he signed up for.
Oh.
Ass.
And that's the thing about this system, is that we now are in a position where we have to consider so many other factors, and we just can't rely on the tapes. I mean, Spacey. If I were ranking the tapes, I'd have him in last. But I've got him in 2nd right now. So.
Yeah, I have him in 2nd too.
Amanda,
so for all
any
our
final
friends
thoughts?
Me, I wish we could go back to the tape system. This would be easier, but I'm going to stick with Malik. I think enough people know he's the cool one. The only thing that worries me potentially is he might be too young, because I was kind of scrolling through looking at some past winners, and they seem to be in their 40s, so he might have to wait a couple of years.
All right, and what were you saying, Zach?
I was just going to say, for all of our friends who rely on us for our Emmy picks, who do we think's going to win? But then I guess the final thought, I'm just going to throw a dart at the wall and say it'll be Spacey, but I can see Rami Malek winning. I can just see it happening, and so it's hard for me to call that.
All right, and Tony?
I'm going to stick with Malik for now. But I might move Spacey up. And now that I know that there's somebody else who actually thinks that Schreiber was that good, I might move Schreiber up a little bit too.
Might move him up a little too, now that I know you guys don't think I'm crazy.
No, I'm keeping Schreiber in 6th. I don't think the episodes matter at all. So I have Kevin Spacey in 1st. I think he's popular. I think he's on a popular show. It might be Rami Malek, but I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. Okay. Thanks very much.